Hello and welcome to our midweek conversation at First Baptist Sweetwater. We strive to be the first responders of God's love. My name is Jerry Hendricks and I'm here with T. Campbellton and we're ready for another week.
Yes.
Actually, this is midweek, so I guess
We're in the
we were
process of
ready.
another
Yeah,
week.
yeah.
We've been ready.
We stay ready for every week.
True.
Okay, that's our motto right there.
It's a new motto.
Finally, after 8 years, we have a motto. I'm glad.
Oh, it has been
That
a
is
while.
good.
After 500 episodes,
500 episodes. So
we have a motto.
yeah. So, wow, going through some of the experience of being or serving as interim pastor, I missed the picnic last week.
There were no hot dogs, though, so you're okay. But there were burgers, and they were really good.
They were amazing. That's good.
I mean, I don't want to rub that in, but they were really good.
I do like good hot dogs.
That is true.
Hamburgers.
Well,
hot dogs
They
too.
were good hamburgers. They were really good.
Well, I know that a lot of folks came out. It looked like a lot of fun and decent weather and day.
Oh,
and
it was
all that
beautiful.
Stuff.
It was beautiful. No wind, really. A little breeze out of the south. I know that because that's the way the ball would move in 9 square in the air.
Right.
So.
Oh, good. Well, we are into the season after Easter, or the subsequent Sundays of Easter. Sunday, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Jesus Revolution movie and its impact on my life. But one of the things I realized as I got started, we didn't have a lot of time Sunday.
Right. Yeah, I don't know why.
So, well, I do, but we had a lot of neat things going on.
Right.
We do communion here.
Intentionally,
and on a regular basis.
And the reason we say that is because our tradition was
Right.
once a quarter.
Right.
And you just threw it in there because you had to have it once a quarter. Right. And for people who don't know what a quarter is, it's every 3 months.
Every 3 months.
Whether you need it or not.
Yeah, and so we have one of the times that we have communion is the first Sunday after Easter. And part of that came about, I guess, because of me and you talking about or being so meticulous about the timeline leading up to Easter,
right?
And there not being a really good place unless you were to add another service,
right? You can do it on Monday, Thursday,
which
we've thought.
Did we talk about that? We did talk about last week?
Not live. You and I talked about it, but not live.
Yeah, for one, my kids attend a church in Abilene. James and Katie do, and they did a Monday, Thursday, and it's a simpler service than what I had imagined. And I know that different people do them in different ways, but and I think with limited resources and limited time, that's the other thing you run into with the people resources you need to do certain things, and you don't want to hurt the Good Friday service that we have, because we do have really good participation there.
Right.
And but I don't think it'd be that complicated.
No, and it'd be fun.
So.
Well, maybe not fun, because you're remembering Jesus being taken out of the garden. So there's that. Something
to talk about or think about. I think could be kept rather simple, but obviously a very, very meaningful time. But so coming into or following the Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday, we have these Sundays of Easter where the discussion in terms of the calendar, the Christian calendar, is really twofold. One are the appearances of Jesus for a period of 40 days, and then also the development of the early church.
Right.
And most often, I gravitate towards talking about the church, and the reason I've always done that is because that's really the best time.
Right.
It makes the most sense for us to talk about our church,
right?
And sort of a state of the church kind of backdrop, even though it's not directly geared towards that. And I like the fact that it does seem to flow more naturally than having a state of the church emphasis.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So anyway, the Jesus Revolution, we talked about that last week. You and Stacy went, and it's stirred up a lot of memories for me. And the more people that I talk to, the more I pick up other parts, I guess, throughout my pilgrimage. But one of the things that that's intrigued me most about my experience was how in the world I got on board in a small town, and it's not like we had a Christian youth group revival,
Right.
but so one of the things that's most intriguing to me about all of this is that there was a band that was in the movie called Love Song.
Right, right.
Well, when I saw the band come on the screen, I go, I think I've got that album.
Oh my goodness.
And so that is the same picture that was on the drum set.
Yeah.
And so it struck a chord, and I go, oh my goodness!
I see what we did there. It struck a chord.
No,
Well
not
done.
intentionally.
Oh, okay.
I've got that album, and so I go, I don't know if I can find it, but I did. Lo and behold, and
Luckily, our group on Facebook will know what an album is.
yeah.
Teenagers, maybe not so
Yeah.
much, but that's
Oh
cool.
no, I've just bought a record player in the last few years. I feel like they'll know that.
So have I.
Yeah. So well,
Well, that's cool.
yeah.
That's cool.
And I also found some other albums from the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, probably most of my Christian listening was on 8-track.
They won't know.
And
if
I
they
have
need it.
those, but they're in the attic, and I didn't get up.
They are not making a comeback like records are.
They are not going to make a comeback for sure.
My first car had a record, an 8-track tape in it.
Yeah.
Or player.
My goodness. But it's just a significant thing. And I think one of the things that I remembered was that there was some young adults in our community that were listening to a lot of those charismatic preachers
Right.
from California. They were listening to them on cassette tape.
Mm-hmm.
And so those cassette tapes would make the circulation.
Right.
And so as a teenager, I'm listening to those. And so a lot of the names that were on the film were familiar. But then also I got into this, Googling and the different names and learning about some of the characters and the movement. So through that movie, you saw that we really have the beginning of contemporary Christian worship.
Right.
Through what ultimately became Maranatha, which I believe is the publisher or whatever you'd call it for the Love Song.
Oh, okay.
And then also Vineyard was ultimately the one that's probably stuck around the longest. But so you had that aspect to it. And through that, one of the young adults, they owned the pharmacy in town, the little pharmacy similar to what ours is. You have a lot of gift shop stuff, but they had a Christian area.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think I got the album there, but I got a lot of my Christian content at my own little bookstore.
Yeah, that's cool.
Whatever vendor they had and that would call on them, they kept a really good supply of books and
cool.
bumper stickers and paraphernalia.
Bumper stickers are always important in Christian faith.
Yeah, one way
I found
Jesus.
that out. Yeah.
So good times.
Which I'm not, you know me, I'm not a movie person. I don't like movies. But we did go see Jesus Revolution. It was really good. And it intrigued me about Kelsey Grammer, who plays the Chuck Smith.
Right.
Plays his part about his faith life, and apparently he is a man of faith also, and so that's pretty cool.
I didn't check him out, but I'm glad you said that, because I assumed that
I'll
there
send
probably
you a video link.
was some connection, because that was a significant role, and he seemed to have played that well.
Passionately. I mean, it was like somebody who was really struggling with their faith, and what that looked like. And there's several really powerful moments in the movie for ministers to see that, and man, it was really good.
Yeah, and we've not had any experience in ministry probably where you came to a crossroad like he was at when he met this Lonnie Frisbee guy. We've had crossroads, actually, arguments, mostly over contemporary worship or staff structure or color of carpet, I guess.
Which they did talk about in the movie,
Yeah.
shag carpet. Our new shag carpet. I was like, oh, so it was new back then, because some churches still have it now.
Exactly. But it is interesting. And then I can't. So where we in for our Sunday messages, we're in that section, and we'd finish up Peter's sermon this week. So you're in that section where you have to understand, or I believe you want to understand, that what's happened is revolutionary, and they're not only as becoming believers and trying to respond appropriately to what's happened, but they're trying to grow their faith through that.
Right.
And then that the growth of their faith develops the church.
Yeah. And it definitely looks radically different than what anyone expected.
Right.
That's what made it so attractive.
Yeah. And I think, that's what, when I look at that and I look at where churches are today in our culture, you wonder where the edge is for us in the future, or if there will ever be another edge.
Right.
Because even with the recent revival, or the movement is the word that I prefer, at Asbury, that happened about the same time this film came out. You're really not hearing much more about that, but you know that there's remnants that were caused through that, that occasionally you'll hear about something special breaking out on a college campus.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an interesting take on what's going on in the world, but then, I think the challenge is for us as a church here in Sweetwater to figure out, how best we respond in a appropriately revolutionary way. I think, and so we come back to what we talk about here on loving others. I think there ought to be some motivation there,
right,
for us to figure out how we want to do that, and how that can happen for us.
Sorry, I got sidetracked. I looked at Love Song. I was thinking about our Wednesday night series and how I might change the title now for our Wednesday night series. From the greatest of these to Love Song. I might like that. Might be good.
When you Google Love Song, you've got to get very deep in the description before you can ever find this group.
What you're looking for.
Yeah. Or even if you look on Spotify. But their music is on Spotify.
I do not have Spotify. I have a record player.
Yeah. So if you're looking for some digital music, it has been probably remastered. But you can listen to some of those songs. And they're still very good songs. It's pretty interesting.
Did you look up any of those band members? Are they still alive?
I didn't look at the band members in particular, but
not that I would have either. But I get it.
Yeah.
So sorry, you tied it back to how we love in Sweetwater and how we live that out. Christianity in America has become so Americanized that we look at love in probably a different way in understanding than even in the movie in the Jesus Revolution. Just thinking about how they had let a whole different culture in that they were judging.
Right.
And heavy judgment. They need Jesus. Well, they were searching. There's a place to find Jesus. But you got to be willing to open your doors. And it can't just be y'all come. You got to go to them. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of that in our world today because we so closely associate Christianity with politics and with political parties that we probably might need to be opening our doors to the people that we dislike the most.
Well, and I think...
Or we judge the most?
Yes, I agree with you. And I didn't go into that on Sunday, one, for time's sake, and the second was for clarity. But when I mentioned that we are in a part of a Christian culture now that's divisive.
Right.
The clear divide is by political party and by media network.
Right.
And if we're such polar opposites, we're using the same approach, which is basically judgment and hatred. Both sides, if you're going to look at it as sides of a division. And I think the ones that lose are those who may never know Christ.
Right, most definitely.
And so I think it's going to be harder for the church to really dig into its purpose and to unite a church with that purpose and sustain it long enough that they can learn to love this world. And there's so many things that we're facing that we're trying to understand before we love it.
Right.
Before we love.
Right.
And again, the inclination is to judge first, rather than letting your first impulse be, I believe God wants me to love first,
Right.
and then we'll see how it goes with some understanding of where this person is. So,
Right.
anyways, not easy, but then, loving others isn't easy.
That's true.
Yeah. So, a lot.
Did you notice the bumper video Sunday?
No, I did not. I had a conversation with some after church, because what happens, Sunday.
'Cause that's your transition to get up there also.
Well, yes, and I had extra notes for Sunday, so I was using a stand instead of the stool. And by the time I turned around and looked up, I think Teak found something dead on for this Jesus Revolution thing.
I was surprised when I found it had Billy Graham in it.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was connected to that initial movement, that he was part of those crusades that they had for young people.
Yeah, I think it seems like there was even a name for the crusades that he did during that period. Mm-hmm. I'm not 100% positive. His movement came about maybe a decade earlier than that time period, but definitely one of the things that occurred through that was this. There were a number of young preachers or communicators that rose up through all that,
right.
And they even in Baptist life, there was a program that they started for Texas Baptist. They were called youth-led revival teams.
Huh.
And so they would get these young, these students in colleges, and then they would send them out 10 weeks during the summer.
Oh, wow.
And some of them became pretty legendary during that time period. And some of the most significant and influential pastors in that time period as well. But, they're, for one thing, they're preaching every week.
Oh, yeah, they're learning.
So, but... and I didn't know that for a long, long time, but it's interesting. It is interesting. We talk, I think, in the offices about youth evangelism conference in Dallas that we would go to. It's another Texas Baptist initiative, and where you'd have 15,000 students and sponsors in a
stadium.
building, in a stadium, and it was a very unique time.
Yeah.
And whatever we see in the future. Will be different than that, I'm sure. But my prayer is that we will get to see that.
Oh, yeah.
So.
And Billy Graham is a great story for now, because he talks about, in, I don't know if it's biography or what it was where I saw it, but he talks about how early on in his ministry he felt the pull to be political. And so he got to pray with presidents and things like that. And it wasn't until a little ways in ministry that he realized you can't unite church and state. You can't link up to them. You need to stay away from that, because you can't be the prophetic voice to the government if you're with the government. And I'm not speaking specifically to his son, but he probably needs to figure that out also. But that's how our world is. We're linking our faith up with our government, and you can't be that voice, that prophetic voice to government if that happens, politics. And well, really cool connection there.
The word, I appreciate you mentioning that, because the word that comes to mind for me in that context is a desperate faith. And a desperate faith no longer is depending on God.
Right.
And I think that's where we've really missed it and panicked as a people of faith over things that we see as troublesome or problems in the world.
Right.
And not that we shouldn't be active and be activists, but I think there's a subtle way, a higher way, I would say.
Oh yeah.
To be a difference maker in the world. Yeah. And I think that you stand out when you love people that no one else wants to love.
Agreed.
So,
for a full list of people that I disagree with on that kind of stuff, they can talk to me in a little bit.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, this is good stuff. I think we had some good stuff.
I think broke out the album.
I think we could continue for a while, but we
probably.
This is much longer than
the question
our
is, will people
ones.
listen longer?
Yeah, that's true. Well, in case that being the case, we'll meet again next week and continue our conversation.
Sounds good. I like that idea.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to church on Sunday. We'll continue with Peter's message there in Acts chapter 2. Look forward to seeing you.
See you then.